And now fate has given us this stab in the back for being such fools as to take nature at her word. She sank into quiet contemplation till she said, "It is best, perhaps, that they should be gone. Yes, I see it is. Better that they should be plucked fresh than stay to wither away miserably." "Yes," said Jude. "Some say that the elders should rejoice when their children die in infancy. But they don't know. Oh, my babies, could you be alive now? You may say the boy wished to be out of life, or he wouldn't have done it. It was not unreasonable for him to die. It was part of his incurably sad nature, poor little fellow. But then the others, my own children and yours." Again she looked at the hanging little frock and at the socks and shoes, and her figure quivered like a string. "I am a pitiable creature," she said. "Good neither for earth nor heaven anymore. I'm driven out of my mind by things. What ought to be done?" She stared at Jude and tightly held his hand. "Nothing can be done," he replied. "Things are as they are and will be brought to their destined issue." She paused. "Yes, who said that?" she asked heavily. "It comes in the chorus of the Agamemnon. It has been in my mind continually since this happened." "My poor Jude, how you've missed everything. You more than I, for I did get you. To think you should know that by your unassisted reading, and yet be in poverty and despair."
You all look so sad. I'm sorry. But we are turning back to poetry. Hardy did say, against the accusations of his being a pessimist, he said he was not a pessimist. He was a meliorist. And he was ameliorating cruelty by demonstrating it in his novels and his poems. The poems we're going to hear, we just have a few in two sections. One are some military poems, and then we have a few poems of affirmation. So one last thing just to say about Jude. It has been called by many critics Hardy's Hamlet. So shall we begin with our poems?
I don't know how many of you are interested in First War poetry. I became fascinated by it when I did Captain Stanhope in Journey's End, the first professional resurrection of the play since the 30s. We did it at the Long Wharf years ago, before the Broadway production. It's my email address, Captain Stanhope. And I became enamored of Sassoon and Owen and London and Ivor Gurney and all the amazing confrontation of these wonderfully classically trained and generally sweet-tempered personalities to barbed wire, high explosive machine guns. And to a man they admired Hardy, especially Blunden and Sassoon. And I dug out some things. Sassoon and Blunden and T.E. Lawrence, when he was a private, went to visit Hardy, and they talked about Shelley. They talked about a lot of things that weren't full of despair. But they admired him because he had a more modern sensibility, and he didn't accept the casual warmongering of the time. The last poem in this little group was written in April of 1914, and it sounds like it was written at the end of the war. But this first poem was used to recruit and was published, as Susan tells me, I didn't know, in the Times Literary Supplement, and was highly praised. But to me, it has a resonance of Kipling's Recession. Lest we forget, lest we forget. He reminded everyone, even Kipling, at the height of the empire, that they were on a razor's edge and they would lose it all if they lost their dedication and their moral straightness. He looked at the empire as something noble. Most disagree, but his feelings were there. And Hardy had the same. There's a certain elegiac quality, even in this recruiting poem. So, men who march away, song of the soldiers. What of the faith and fire within us, men who march away, ere the barn cocks say, night is growing gray, leaving all that here can win us? What of the faith and fire within us, men who march away? Is it a purblind prank, oh think you, friend with a musing eye, who watch us stepping by with doubt and dolorous sigh? Can much pondering so hoodwink you? Is it a purblind prank, oh think you, friend with the musing eye? Nay, we well see what we are doing, though some may not see, dalliers as they be, England's need are we. Her distress would leave us ruing. Nay, we well see what we are doing, though some may not see. In our heart of hearts believing victory crowns the just, and that braggarts must surely bite the dust, press we to the field ungrieving, in our heart of hearts believing victory crowns the just. Hence the faith and fire within us, men who march away, ere the barn cocks say, night is growing gray, leaving all that here can win us. Hence the faith and fire within us, men who march away. To me, there's a double meaning there, that everything they love and honor is marching away. It's going out there, it's going to be shot. But the people at the time took it as a very affirmative poem. Later, he wrote a little poem called The Man He Killed. Had he and I but met by some old ancient inn, we should have set us down to wet right many a nipperkin. But ranged as infantry, and staring face to face, I shot at him as he at me, and killed him in his place. I shot him dead because he was my foe, just so. My foe, of course he was, that's clear enough, although he thought he'd list, perhaps, offhand-like, just as I, was out of work, had sold his traps, no other reason why. Yes, quaint and curious war is, you shoot a fellow down, you treat, if met where any bar is, or help to half a crown. That went down very well with the soldiers. And this is written in April of 1914. And they were out in the Channel testing guns. They were the ships were out there blasting away. Channel firing. That night your great guns, unawares, shook all our coffins as we lay, and broke the chancel window squares. We thought it was the judgment day, and sat upright. While drearisome arose the howl of wakened hounds, the mouse let fall the altar crumb, the worms drew back into the mounds, the glebe cow drooled, till God called, no, it's gunnery practice out at sea. Just as before you went below, the world is as it used to be. All nations striving strong to make red war yet redder, mad as hatters, they do no more for Christ's sake than you who are helpless in such matters. That this is not the judgment hour for some of them's a blessed thing, or if it were, they'd have to scour hell's floor for so much threatening. Ha ha! It will be warmer when I blow the trumpet, if indeed I ever do, for you are men, and rest eternal sorely need. So down we lay again. I wonder, will the world ever saner be, said one, than when he sent us under in our indifferent century? And many a skeleton shook his head. Instead of preaching 40 year, my neighbor Parson Thirdly said, I wish I'd stuck to pipes and beer. Again the guns disturbed the hour, roaring their readiness to avenge, as far inland as Stourton Tower and Camelot, and and starlit Stonehenge. I love the last two lines. It takes it back further and further inland, and also further and further back in time.